Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo is on the ground in Charlotte, North Carolina, and joins us live. Ziyanda, good to speak to you. Now, you're in Charlotte, which is a different part of North Carolina. What's the update at the moment?
Well, where we are is one of the rallies that Kamala Harris will be speaking at, and as you can hear, the rally is quite full to the brim at this stage, and in an hour or so we expect the official program to get underway. Kamala Harris coming back to a different part of North Carolina. She was here, a few days ago on Wednesday, coming back again. This is one of the swing states. We've just heard from Kerry Washington, Hugo. I mean, a personal favorite of mine, I must admit. Of course, you'll know she played the character of Olivia Pope in the series Scandal / The Fixer. And, she used that fictional character to speak about how she is not going to be able to get people to vote for Kamala Harris alone. As Americans have to go out there and at least convince one person in their area, in their community, to vote for Kamala Harris. We also heard from the Attorney General, who's also running to be governor here in North Carolina, and lots has been said about the protection of women's rights. They would overturn, the state laws around abortion, which was well received by the crowd here. So the momentum is building, the energy is high, the final push is underway. 3 days to go until Americans head to the polls. Nearly 70 million have already cast their votes in, early voting via in-person or mail. And so this moment is very critical. In areas such as this, in North Carolina and Charlotte in particular, it's neck in neck. 49, 51, 51, 49. The numbers continuously change by the day, and you can tell that in terms of the energy in the air, that all stakes are high for both sides, and even Donald Trump himself will be making his way to rally in North Carolina as well on Monday night as a part of the final push for the November 5 polls.
Ziyanda, you speak of 70 million people that have already cast their ballots. So let's talk about the total number of anticipated voters that are expected to vote. And then that, I suppose, speaks to how critical this final push is for both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
It's absolutely critical, Hugo, and this is exactly, the kind of anxiety, the tension, at times frustration, the uncertainty in the air. There is really, in these final rallies, a talk about ensuring that people go out to vote. Much like what we had in our general election in May, the main thing is to get people out of voter apathy, and the numbers in terms of the early voting are astounding. Record highs in Georgia, record highs in Wisconsin, and here in North Carolina as well, just on the first day of voting in comparison to 2020. So it tells you just how high the stakes are, just how much, is hinging not only on this election, but these final rallies in terms of ensuring that those who are not sure about who they want to vote for, that they vote for a Kamala Harris or they vote for a Donald Trump. The language that is used. I mean, earlier on I was talking about how from the Republican side, in particular here in North Carolina, their messaging is talking about the cost of living crisis. Has your life improved in the last 4 years? Have there been any new wars in the last 4 years? Resembling, by and large, I must say, Hugo, the line that Ronald Reagan took in 1980 with that election against Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, the Democratic candidate, losing against Ronald Reagan. And so they're clearly, taking up that stance. And this side of the spectrum with the Democrats, they're still talking about pro-choice, the escalation of, the violation of women's rights and their ability to have bodily autonomy when it comes to abortion. That is a very critical issue, especially in an area such as Charlotte. We are actually in the southern part where racial segregation is still very real in areas such as this one, dating back to the Jim Crow laws, I beg your pardon. So these are all the issues that are still being ventilated. People are really being encouraged to make the right choice for them, and this is why then these final rallies may just be what that potential voter needs to vote for either candidate.
So, Ziyanda, when we look at a place like North Carolina, are the issues that concern the people national, or are they more localized? And what are some of those issues? You've obviously spoken to issues around abortion, and that particularly impacts on women. What are the issues that the men are looking out for? What is a message that either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris today is likely to address?
Well, you know, much like many countries across the world, there's a serious cost of living crisis in the United States. And this is what many of both these candidates have been speaking about, albeit in different ways. Donald Trump seeming to be more pro-business, talking about tax cuts, you know, for big business and how he'll reduce inflation to make America great again. Kamala Harris also talking about the cost of living crisis, but she's mainly been targeting, you know, the labor unions in America. In fact, in the last couple of days, she's been pushing towards attracting the men in the labor unions. And you'll know that gender has also been a huge factor. Kamala Harris really attracting the women vote, of course, because of the issues around abortion since the overturning of the Roe versus Wade Supreme Court of Appeal judgments. And so, you know, these are the kinds of issues, both bread and butter, but also macro issues that are being ventilated. I mean, the issue of Israel and Palestine has also been quite topical, although interestingly, you know, both candidates seemingly taking quite a similar line. The issue of, you know, the escalation in the Middle East and what's taking place in Iran. Kamala Harris saying that Iran must not respond. She said that a few days ago. And so in terms of a foreign policy perspective, you know, for some that has put them off to say, I like Kamala Harris and what she's talking about in terms of the domestic politics, but might not necessarily agree with her when it comes to the issues of the Middle East. And so these are the kinds of decisions that people are making. Some commentators locally are talking about how, well, you know, some may not necessarily like Kamala, but she's the better devil than Donald Trump. You know, and this is the difference then as well when you look at the presidential election and then you look at the local politics in states such as North Carolina. It's very nuanced and quite different. So here you're seeing a lot of Gen Z voters being relied on by Kamala, by, you know, the Democrats to actually win this vote. And so we'll hear then what Kamala Harris has to say to the people of North Carolina. Her coming back here in just as many days is an indication of resources being plowed in an area such as this one, where there was only 1 percentage point difference in 2020 between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So that's just how tight this race is, and language and what lands on the electorate and the potential voter is going to be very important. It's a matter of, on the Democrat side, they're saying this is an election to save democracy. On the side of Donald Trump, they are saying this is to rescue any form of civilization.
Ziyanda, you talked about a full house at this rally, and it's evident from the pictures that we're seeing at the moment. Let's talk about the youth and minority voter turnout. What are those numbers looking like, and how critical are the youth? You've talked about Gen Z, but let's talk about young people in general. Are they likely to sway the vote in any way? Are either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump appealing to this as a group?
Well, as I've already mentioned, the Gen Zs are what the Democrats are relying on. And that's why then you'll see the push on social media. That's why when we went to North Carolina State University, a lot of the young people there were being encouraged to vote for Kamala Harris, and that they might be the reason why she gets to win this swing state of North Carolina. And this is why, you know, there's been a lot of debate about the use of the platform called X and how with Elon Musk's support for Donald Trump, you know, this has tipped the scales negatively for the Democrats. But nevertheless, you know, if you just even watch the campaign ads on local television here, you do get a sense that, you know, the Democrats are targeting young people. Even their volunteers in North Carolina are predominantly young people, where comparatively speaking, you know, you look at the Republicans, they're a much older demographic, so to speak. So they are going to be very important. The Gen Zs might be the ones to tip the scales. I mean, the one Gen Z voter who was a first-time voter, they were 19 years old, I beg your pardon, and transgender. They spoke about how the language of Donald Trump against transgenders, persons in the LGBTIQ community is a turnoff for them, and how in their community, while it's a completely red state, in a red community, they are pushing against that as a 19-year-old, trying to fight for their ability to literally exist.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, that's where we'll leave it for now. And she's our senior politics reporter coming to us from North Carolina in the United States. And she's watching all the activity ahead of an important election in 3 days' time.